Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and welcome to the International Seminar at the Faculty of Medicine Universitas Indonesia discussing achieving excellence in international accreditation, strategies, and best practices. My name is Aisha and I will be the Master of Ceremony for today's event. First and foremost, all praise and gratitude we extend to the Almighty God for His abundant blessings that enable us to gather here for today's important event. Allow us to extend our warmest welcome to our distinguished guests, Professor Emiola Oluwabunmi Olapade Olaopa, President of the African Medical School Association and Executive Council member of the World Federation for Medical Education, or the WFME, Profesor Dr. Haramani Kalim, spesialis jantung dan pembuluh darah konsultan, Master of Public Health FIHA, as the Sub-Coordinator for Medicine, LAM-PTKes, or the Indonesian Accreditation Agency for Higher Education in Health, or the IAAHEH, Profesor Dr. Dwiana Okvianti, spesialis obstetri dan ginekologi konsultan, Master of Public Health, as the Vice Dean for Education, Research, and Student Affairs, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Indonesia, Profesor Dr. M. Yunir, spesialis penyakit dalam, konsulen endokrin metabolic diabetes, as the Manager of Academic and Student Affairs for Medical Specialist and Subspecialist Programs. We also warmly welcome all deans, vice deans, education coordinators, LAM-PTKes, or the IAAHEH, and their representatives who are joining us today. And also to our head of undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctoral program faculty of medicine, Universitas Indonesia, and postgraduate students and or alumni from medical education who are also joining us through Zoom. Thank you for being here. We are truly honored by your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, to begin today's session, we would like to invite Profesor Dr. Dwiana Okvianti, spesialis obstetri dan ginekologi konsultan, Master of Public Health, the Vice Dean for Education, Research, and Student Affairs at the Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Indonesia, to deliver her opening remarks. To Prof. Ovi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aisha. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning for everybody here, and especially our honored guest, Professor Emiola Oluwabunmi Olapade Olaopa, the President of the African Medical Schools Association. Thank you for your coming here. Professor Emiola is the guest of the Indonesian Accreditation Agency for Higher Education in Health, or LAM-PTKes. We already know the LAM-PTKes here, and now LAM-PTKes is already an international agency for accreditation. So the topic today, we are very happy to have Professor Emiola here to discuss all about national accreditation. On behalf of our Dean, who are very happy, of course, to become the home base for these activities, but actually he has something to do, a lot of meeting with the rector today. So I want to ask for Professor Emiola, and also to say a lot of thanks for coming here and will be our guest for 2 days. Tomorrow we still have a discussion for all is by Zoom, and I already invite all the deans from all over Indonesia. Indonesia now has 124 faculty of medicine. So it is a big amount, and we will reach 300 in the very fast days. I don't know, but it is the aim of our president to increase the number of faculty of medicine to become 300. But nowadays only 124 still. So more of our colleagues want to come, but of course, Indonesia is very far from Aceh to Papua. And we only ask the deans from Jakarta and arounds to come offline, and all others dean, I hope they also send their staff to come in Zoom. So now it's already more than 50 already in the Zoom to hear from all over Indonesia. So they will ask also question. Thank you, Prof. Emiola, for coming. We are especially privileged of our speaker, Prof. Emiola, because as a globally respected expert in medical education reform, he also contribution have significantly shaped the progress of medical institution across Africa and beyond. So we are also grateful for the presence of Professor Dr. Haramani Kalim from the IAAHEH or International Accreditation of Indonesia, the LAM-PTKes, who continues to support quality assurance and accreditation in Indonesia with great dedication. So, Prof. Emiola, the IAAHEH, a little bit long, Indonesian Accreditation Agency for Higher Education in Health is the only external accreditation for all faculty of medicine and also all health sciences in Indonesia. So Prof. Haramani Kalim and colleagues have a very great job to make sure that every education in health in Indonesia is in a good standard and also have international standard. At the Faculty of Medicine, we believe that international collaboration, benchmarking, and knowledge exchange are essential for advancing our standards, not only to meet global accreditation requirements, but also to serve out communities with competence, compassion, and innovation. In Indonesia, we have a little bit different with other country around the world, because in Indonesia, our education for specialists and subspecialists in medicine is also under the university. So tomorrow we will discuss about that. But today we focus on discussion with Prof. Emiola. Prof. Emiola also run training, Prof. Emiola, in urology resident, if I'm not mistaken. So we can have a talk about the residency tomorrow. But now we will focus on the quality assurance of medical faculty internationally. So I hope that this event will offer new perspective and spark meaningful dialogue across institutions here in Indonesia and also internationally. Once again, I welcome all speakers, deans, educators. I think more than 50 university already send their member here in offline and more in online. May this seminar be insightful, productive, and inspire for all of us. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Prof. Duyana, for the warm and meaningful opening. And with that, we have officially begun today's agenda. Once again, thank you to all of our distinguished speakers and guests for joining us. We're really looking forward to an engaging and fruitful sessions ahead. Now, we're moving on to the main event, the International Seminar Session. This session will be moderated by Professor Dr. Duyana Okvianti, Specialist Obstetri dan Gynecology Consultant, Master of Public Health, the Vice Dean for Education, Research, and Student Affairs, FMUI. Prof. Duyana, who many of us fondly know as Prof. Ovi, will guide us through today's important presentations and discussions. Let me first talk you briefly through the session. So this session will begin with a presentation titled Introduction to the IAAHEH Accreditation, which will be delivered by Professor Dr. Haramani Kalim, Spesialis Jantung dan Pembuluh Darah Konsultan, Master of Public Health FIHA, who is a sub-coordinator for medicine for LAM-PTKes. And then following that, we are honored to hear from our keynote speaker, Professor Emiola Oluwabunmi Olapade Olaopa, the president for the African Medical School Association, who will deliver a lecture titled Achieving Excellence in International Accreditation, Strategies, and Best Practices. His talk will include valuable insights from his work with the WFME and the IAAHEH, experiences with African accreditation systems, and more. This session will conclude with an interactive question and answer session, so we encourage all participants, both here in the Senate room and those joining us through Zoom, to prepare your questions and make the most of this opportunity. For anyone joining through Zoom, you may scan the barcode on the bottom right on your screen to enter your questions and follow the instructions written on your Zoom chat box. Without further ado, I now invite Prof. Ofi to take over as moderator. Please welcome to the floor, Prof. Ofi.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Aisyah. So we will begin today with Professor Haramani Kalim. I think most of us already recognize Prof. Haramani Kalim as one of the senior in LAM-PTKes. There will be yes, this is the CV of Prof. Haramani Kalim. So Prof. Haramani Kalim will give us insight on the IAAHEH accreditation process, the current national accreditation landscape. So we know all that we can ask for international accreditation nowadays, not with international organization, but with LAM-PTKes or IAAHES, and the quality assurance framework have provided us with valuable context to better understand the accreditation challenges and strategies ahead. So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Haramani Kalim to give his presentation, please.
Yes, thank you for Professor Ofi and for all the friends and participants during this meeting, whether they are here or in Zoom. Welcome. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. What I would like to present is about the international accreditation of LAM-PTKes or IAAHEH, Indonesian Accreditation Agency for Higher Education and Health. And you know that actually the history of the formal accreditation of higher education in Indonesia is just started in 1994 when the government established BAN-PT or National Education Board for Higher Education. So during the 1994 forward year, the accreditation was done by BAN-PT, and later on, the government and the organization profession think that accreditation of the university or higher education institution is not sufficient to improve the quality of the education in higher education in health. So the government established LAM-PTKes later on, and this is become one of the model of independent accreditation agency for its science discipline. And you know that from this slide, the Indonesian Accreditation Agency in Higher Education and Health is the first independent accreditation agency established by the government in 2014. And other accreditation agency for other science field is established later on, and it included law, business, economics, pedagogy, culture, and so on. So this is the independent accreditation agency that is supported by the government, and they get mandate from the government to perform accreditation of each discipline. And this is the history of the short history of LAM-PTKes. It began when the Ministry of Education organized health profession education quality in 2009 and then in 2011. And what the government intended to do was how to improve the quality of education, higher education in health. And the project, we call it Health Professional Education Quality Project, was supported by World Bank. And after that, the government invite experts from LCMA. There's the License for Committee for Medical Education Accreditation in the United States. And then later on, we sent also a team to LCMA office in Washington. And starting in 2011, 7 professional organizations and 7 association of higher education institutions get together. They make a consensus that they think accreditation agency should be established for health sciences. The organization profession 7, they included medicine, dentistry, nursing, midwife, pharmacy, public health, and nutrition. So these 7 organization profession and 7 association of higher education institution in health, they get together and decide to establish an independent accreditation agency. And in 2014, the Ministry of Education gave a mandate, and LAM-PTKes, as known before, or International Agency, Indonesian Agency for Accreditation in Higher Education in Health, is starting to accredit in 2015. And after that, we get recognition from several well-known international organizations. And starting in 2020, we embarked an international program of the accreditation of LAM-PTKes or IAAHEH. So we have a recognition from the WFMA, APQR, ACAN, and so on. So why is it important to give recognition from WFMA? Because it increases our credibility, it gives us an international standard, and the standard WFMA is internationally recognized. And also, this is the global recognition, quality assurance, and so on. So this is the WFMA come to us and accredit and evaluate whether our standard and our procedure and our activity of accreditation in alignment with the WFMA standards and criteria. As I said before, this is the health fleet that is accredited by LAM-PTKes. There are 7, and now we are also accrediting veterinary and also allied health, just like traditional medicine and also other new study program that is not belong to other health science or other medical science. We have a strategic orientation. We want to be a global standard accreditation agency that facilitate continuous improvement of higher education programs in health. And also, we want to develop cooperation and collaboration globally. And then we want to improve the accreditation service, and also we enhance our professionality and accountability. So we want to improve the accountability, professionality, the network, and also the quality of the accreditation service. Actually, we give accreditation certificate not just to see that they are accredited, but actually the certificate is part of institutionalizing quality assurance culture in the institution. So it is not only the certificate, but actually we want to put the culture of continuous quality improvement in the institution and in the program study. This is the WFMA standard and criteria that we adopt. We adopt the basic medical education standard for global quality from WFMA in the basic medical education 2020 revision and postgraduate medical education revision 2023. And also, we adopt this master degree program in 2018 revision. So we have instrument that in alignment, or we refer to WFMA standard for basic medical education, for postgraduate medical education, and for master degree program. And then this is a principle-based approach and qualitative. And qualitative approach allows more flexibility. We acknowledge the local context, adaptability, and holistic, more comprehensive, more in-depth evaluation of the institution and the program study. The instrument and the standard and the book was reviewed by General Medical Council, United Kingdom, in July 2022. The qualitative methodology, actually, we base non-numerical data like interview, observation, simulation, and text analysis. And principally, we evaluate the how and why question, providing rich description that will also add to the finding of the quantitative data. Why we use this WFMA standard and criteria? Because it is used globally. Many of the accreditation agency in the world use this standard. And this is the result of the WFMA survey in 2025. How many agencies in the world use? There are 106 agencies use the basic medical education standard, and 43 for the postgraduate medical education standard, and also the WFMA just recently received the accreditation standard for continuing professional development. And 23 accreditation agency adopted, because this is the most recent standard released by the WFMA. So WFMA called this a trilogy of standard: basic medical education, postgraduate medical education, and continuing professional development. So even CPD need to have accreditation. This is the number or the percentage of the accreditation agency that agree with the principle base or the qualitative approach of the standard. So most of them agree that we are now using the qualitative or the principle based standard. This is about 75% of the accreditation agency globally that agree we use principle based and qualitative based approach. And the strength of the qualitative, you see that there are some strength of the qualitative approach. This is holistic, more in-depth, and it adopt the cultural context, the local context, and also it improve quality of the education better, and it can engage more stakeholders, not like the principle based, but the qualitative approach can engage more stakeholders during the accreditation. We engage more students, more faculty, more management, and so on. And also, the qualitative approach can identify best practice in one institution or in one program study that can be applied to other program. So this is the strength of our qualitative approach: local context, best practice, holistic, in-depth, and also flexible, and so on. But there are some limitations for this qualitative approach. This time consuming, and sometimes when the assessors and the study program doesn't correctly write something, then they may put a bias on their assessment. And then the finding is sometimes not generalizable. It's not applicable to other program study or to other institution. And of course, we have to know this limitation, and we will be able to make a more precise, more objective report. What is the standard of the WFMA? There are 8 standards. The number 1 is the vision and values, curriculum, assessment, student, faculty, learning resources, and governance and administration. So this is very simple and very straightforward standard. But because this is qualitative, all of the standard will be dealt with more in-depth, more intensive, and more time-consuming, and more triangulation. This is the postgraduate medical education standard. The difference is with this postgraduate medical education and basic medical education, the difference is only this. We don't call, number 4, we don't call student, but we call postgraduate doctors because they are already doctors. And the number 5, teachers and clinical spouses. There are some small differences between the standard for basic medical education and postgraduate medical education, but all the principle is almost the same. And for each standard or criteria, there are sub-criteria. For example, in the curriculum, there are 5 sub-criteria. And then after the sub-criteria, there is a key question. And then compliance. This is the criteria for compliance. The criteria is 8. The sub-criteria is about 32. And then the key question is about 120 or 130. And then the criteria for compliance is about 250. So this is very thorough and very detailed and very deep. So the criteria is 8, sub-criteria 32, the key question about 130, the criteria for compliance is about 250. And this is the number of instruments that we have developed. We now develop and the criteria 154. Why there are so many instruments? Because we develop one instrument for one specific education. For example, for nursing, for midwife, and for nursing, there are diploma, there are profession, there are academic, and also specialists. And also for the medicine, there are different level of education. So at the end, there are 154 instruments that we are going to use to accredit every specific program. The international, we have developed 26 criteria. This is for basic medical education, some postgraduate medical education, some specialists, and then also master degree and PhD program in 26 instruments. How are we going to do the accreditation process for international? This is the step, and in all it will take 36 weeks, and starting with the registration and eligibility. Registration and eligibility will take 2 weeks, and we will decide whether the institution or the program study is eligible for our accreditation, because probably there are not all eligible for our international accreditation. And then after that, starting the nurturing process. The nurturing process is about 8 weeks, and there are 4 or 5 meetings between the nurturer and the program study. And then after the nurturing finish, the program study should write their own final self-evaluation report in 7 weeks. And then the assessor will do the desk evaluation. The desk evaluation is about 4 weeks, and then they make report, and then field assessment. Field assessment is now 1 week because 4 days work and 1 day traveling to go there and 1 day traveling to go home. And final report, accreditation committee, decision, appeal, and surveillance. You see here that we always perform surveillance or monitoring post-accreditation activity, whether to see whether the study program has, accommodate the challenge, the program, and whether the study program still follow the standard. And this is the book. There are 4 books that help us to carry out the accreditation. Book 1 is the academic paper, and this is different for every specific program. And book 2 is the guide for assessor. Book 3 for the program study, and book 4 is the accreditation procedure. Book 4 is the same for all type of study for all level. And then for the international accreditation, we have underwent training by the GMC, General Medical Council from UK, and the General Medical Council from UK has done 2-time training with us. One is training for assessor, and one is training for tutor of the trainer of the training. And then we have also invited foreign assessor to be participant in the training. And of course, the work of the assessor will be longer. This is the number of international assessors. We have 23 foreign assessors, and we have 47, and the total is 70. And all are prepared for different fields, from medicine, dentistry, nursing, midwife, nutrition, public health, and pharmacy. So this is the reflect our intention to perform international accreditation in all fields of health science. And in the future, we will increase the number of assessors in other health field science. This is the citizen of the foreign assessors from Thailand, Taiwan, Australia, Cambodia, Malaysia, and Turkey and Tunisia. So when we are going to do the accreditation, international accreditation, we will engage or we will invite the foreign international assessor from this country because they have been trained by the GMC. At the moment, we are running an international accreditation program in this field. In medicine, we have done in Vanuatu and Indonesia. And then in dentistry, we are doing now in University of Putisara in Cambodia, pharmacy in Mahidol University, Thailand, nursing in University of Putisara in Cambodia also, midwife in Luzon University in the Philippines, public health in Mahidol again, and nutrition in University of Putra, Malaysia. The accreditation decision is for 8 years if you are fully compliant, and 5 years if you are compliant with these 5 criteria: the curriculum, the faculty, educational resources, government, and academic staff. So if you are fully compliant with these 5 criteria, the curriculum, academic staff, resources, governments, and also assessment, you will be granted accreditation status for 5 years. But if this 5 is not fully complied, then you will not get the accreditation status. And if all the criteria is fulfilled, then you will get 8 years of the full accreditation status for 8 years. So in summary, the Indonesian Agency for Accreditation in Higher Education in Health is now embarking on an international program, domestic and abroad. And we developed the instruments, the total number of instruments, 154, but for the international program, we just developed 26, and we are still adding this number by developing another instrument of international accreditation for other health field. And we evaluate the quality based on the basic medical education standard, postgraduate medical education standard, and master with the WFMA, and PhD program with the Orpheus PhD program. That is all my presentation. Thank you very much for attention. And of course, I would like appreciate very much for the presence of Professor Olapade. He would like you to call him Professor Bumi. Professor Bumi. So in Indonesia, Bumi, the meaning of Bumi is earth. So the earth belong to Professor Olapade. Thank you very much. And of course, I hope that this seminar will become a productive platform for you all to explore new idea, to challenge assumption, and toward innovative solution for our medical education, for the benefit of medical education and the benefit of society. And you all will be grateful for the deep discussion of Professor Olapade, because he has a very famous track record in the academic achievement, in leadership, and also in development healthcare system. I think Professor Olapade, I hope everybody will get a fruitful and inspiring activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Haramani Kalim. So before we come to the discussion, we better to hear the keynote presentation from our honored guest, Professor Emiola Oluwabunmi Olapade Olaopa. Professor Olapade Olaopa is a professor of surgery at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, and a widely respected leader in medical education reform and international accreditation. So our main discussion today is about internal accreditation. There will be a lot of faculty of medicine in Indonesia, but we still try our best to maintain the quality of medical education and also health education in Indonesia internationally. Professor Olapade Olaopa also has held numerous prestigious positions, including service in the World Federation for Medical Education, and has been a key figure in advancing competency-based education and accreditation strategies across Africa. So there will be a lot of things that we can discuss with Professor Olaopa Olapade. So please, Professor, it is your time now.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and welcome. Thanks, Professor. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ofia. And I must say that before I get to the acknowledgements, I must thank Professor Haramani for his kind words about me, but most importantly about the presentation he gave, because that has resolved a lot of issues for me. So you know what and who to blame with the accreditation of Indonesia. I have some disclaimers. The first is that as the now immediate past, but still on the EXCO of the Association of Medical Schools in Africa. I am on the WFME. Did I change it? I'm on the WFME Executive Committee, and we are responsible for those 3 standards. So I'm on the accreditation side of this, but also I am the professor and head of department. So I'm being accredited. So I feel your pain. I'm an immediate past provost of the College of Medicine. Well, not the immediate past, the now former provost. So I know what it is like to have these accreditation bodies coming around, and I will show you. I just underwent an accreditation myself about 6 months ago. And in my position, when you have gone accrediting people around, then when they come to your institution, they feel it's their time to get back at you. So I quite understand how deans and heads of departments feel. So I'm going to, hopefully in the next 20 or 30 minutes, goes through what it is I think are the strategies and best practices. And I've changed the title a little bit. I've said for universities. The reason being that yesterday I was speaking to the IAAHEH, and they are accrediting bodies. So I've included some things that I think would be relevant to you. I have my co-authors, because you can't do this alone. So some of the things you'll be seeing were put in by my co-authors. And I bring you warm greetings from Africa. In Africa, everything is a song and a dance. So I was glad to see that you are more relaxed than when I do this in European countries, no pun meant. Right, and that's my home institution. The College of Medicine with the statue of Hippocrates, and a teaching hospital. And I was glad to hear that in Indonesia, the specialists are under the universities, because in Nigeria, there is a dichotomy, and that sometimes causes issues, as you can imagine. And my acknowledgements are to the EXCO of the LAM-PTKes, who have brought me all the way from Nigeria to Indonesia. They hosted me yesterday. And of course, to Prof. Titi and to the Dean and Vice Chancellor of the University of Indonesia. It was a delight for me to hear people say UI. Well, you know, I come from UI too. My university is University of Ibadan. So each time they say UI, I have to remember that it's University of Indonesia, not University of Ibadan. So it's a great pleasure to be amongst you and in this hallowed hall. Right, so what do I have to share with you from Africa? It's really about strategies and best practices for universities for achieving international accreditation. As I have been introduced and as I've stated, I have done quite a bit of international work, but you will see from my presentation that the most important thing is what you do locally. This was painted by my student, one of my students, by the way, as part of trying to include students in. Right, so the objectives of the lecture, and I think I should just stand. I didn't want to go to the Thank you. So these are the objectives of my lecture, just for the Zoom people. And it's really to ensure that, if I can just talk to my slides, it's to highlight the challenges and the impact of international and cross-border accreditation amongst health professionals. And as I said yesterday, I was really very pleased to know that health professionals work together in Indonesia. Again, that is a unique feature, which is very important. And in this talk, I'll be focusing on the insights for the universities and other health professionals institutions. Are you see if I press it and you press it and it goes to slides. Right. So these are the table of contents of what I intend to speak about. Okay, next, please. I think it'd just be easier. She wants to change it, so that's fine. So in that instance, you have to go back a couple. Thank you. One more. Right. So I always have a summary slide first, because after that you can go to sleep or perhaps relate everything together. And the most important thing about accreditation, or what Professor Haramani said, is that we must recognize that accreditation is just a risk reduction strategy. It's not an end to itself. And once you know that, you would understand that it's only, as doctors would say and as health professionals would say, it's just a biopsy. It tells you what's going on now. And therefore, you need to continue to work at it. Yes, thank you, sir. You need to continue to work at it for you to now have a process of continuous improvement. So it's not a one-stop. And in that event, standards and indicators must be identified. WFME standards, Indonesian standards, but most important, you must achieve a consensus on what are the standards for your local environment. And that is the greatest challenge. And we had a discussion about that yesterday. So because we have a lot of people who shoot for accreditation thinking, once we have accreditation, then we're okay. No, it's just a snapshot. What happens in 5 years' time? Next slide, please. So we've done that. Next slide, please. Thank you. And I'll just go through this very quickly. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's get some things clear. These are the areas that I didn't talk about yesterday, but which I want us to focus on today. A university is merely an educational institution that instructs on several branches of learning and confers degrees. Therefore, you're a focus of learning. And the reason you want to learn is to improve either yourself or your society. And the issue now is your society is both local and global. You then want to have a positive impact on this society. Global now is not just worldwide, but it is actually local with international standards, as you've just heard. Indonesia is now using global standards. So for you to be a global university, you don't have to go across the world. You just have to be using global standards. And therefore, you must understand that this is because you want to ensure your relevance and survival within that society, which is now global. So we are all here as a university because we are in the business of global learning. So international is no longer what is happening outside of Indonesia. It's what is happening in Indonesia that is based on what is happening international. Next slide, please. So what is accreditation? 2 key points. I won't repeat what Professor Haramani has said, but to emphasize that it is done by external regulatory bodies, whether these are government or independent. And what they do at that time is to ensure that they use established national and international criteria, as he has described, standards and procedures. They gather data on various aspects of your institution, and this is done primarily to ensure that the quality of your graduates are matching with global standards, but importantly, they must have local relevance. Please, there's no point having international standards if you're not really useful to your people. It's very important that we understand that. The essence of international standards is to make sure that your local relevance is matching global standards. But the most important thing is your local relevance. And once you've done that, as I will show in another slide, generally you're okay. Do not forget that what is local in Indonesia is international in Ibadan. And what we do in Ibadan that is local is international to you. And that's one of the reasons why we now talk about global standards, because everybody is local and everybody is international. Next slide, please. So what is this lecture really all about? We should rephrase that title to say that what steps should an institution that is focused on global learning take to meet both national and international standards in order to enhance its educational processes and ensure that its graduates positively impact the local community, thereby maintaining its local relevance and global survival. That is what we're really going to talk about. Next slide, please. So, Prof. Haramani has told you all about the concepts of accreditation, but it is important that I add that the criteria are set to ensure that when you evaluate institutions, those criteria provide reproducible data, comparable data, the criteria are fair, and there must be a two-way benefit. The two-way benefit is between the institution and the accrediting body. Everybody is learning. But within the institution, there must be quality assurance mechanisms, and there is a peer review. Next slide, please. Prof. Haramani has already spoken about this. I will only add that you would have, by accreditation, attractiveness to prospective students, both local and international. That is to the benefit of the institution. And of course, the more you get accredited, the more incentives you get. And then you get into this culture of knowing that you're going to be periodically evaluated. And as I mentioned yesterday, most institutions only get ready for accreditation every 5 years. So you know what's going to happen after that. Everybody goes to sleep. Next slide, please. And I don't know if in Indonesia you do ranking. Everybody's now looking at the Times Higher Education ranking. So your accreditation helps you with that. Benefits are, as Prof. Haramani has said, just to highlight the fact that it confirms that your graduates meet global standards. It also facilitates recognition of your degrees abroad. It attracts talent to you if you're accredited, as he has shown, and continuous improvement, as I mentioned. Next slide, please. Okay, so what's the process about? Yesterday, I didn't talk about this much because I was with the accreditors, but now that I'm with the university, this is a painting I gave Prof. Usman, but it's from my country. So tortoise is usually considered wise, an old and wise man, which is what I think Prof. Usman is. And the talking drum is how we communicate with each other. So the whole idea is that this is a communication between the wise people and those of us who are learning. Next slide, please. So, like I said, it's every 5 years, and these are the things that are reviewed. Prof. Haramani has mentioned that, so I'll move on to other things. Next slide, please. How do you ensure that you get through? The first thing is to know the processes, the pre-visit preparation. This gives us in the university a headache because you have to collect all the data they need. And by God, do they want a lot of data. Files of all your staff, examination processes, students, scripts. So you must have, for this, a real-time honored process. When I went through my accreditation 6 months ago, it was because my predecessor as head of department had started 18 months before, and we had been collecting the data. This is a headache for universities. So if you do not get into it as a routine process, I'm here now, but at home we're having 3 exams, and I have dedicated 4 staff to keep the scripts, to keep the students' evaluation of the exams, to keep the examiners' evaluation of the exams, and to ensure that it is entered in a manner that can be analyzed. So you must have a continuous mechanism for this. Otherwise, when they say they're coming for this, geez, you're running around like a headless chicken. And I've been there too. So when they come on site, they're very nice in their opening meetings. But what happens when they do their interviews and focus group?
Lain seperti obesitas, gangguan hormonal, dan lain sebagainya, sehingga itu bisa menjadi faktor.
That happens in Nigeria too. And they want to do their interviews and focus group discussions, especially with your students. And you've got to be careful. Now, I'm talking as a head of department. Select your best students. Don't allow any student who has a grouse with you to go and meet their accreditors. That's not what you want. You know, so you really have to look at that. Then, of course, they want to inspect your facility. In my country, where funding is limited, we love accreditation for this purpose, because we go to the vice chancellor and we say the accreditors are coming, they're going to deaccredit your institution unless you give us money. And that's where we get money. So we get money to improve our facilities because we know that the accreditors are coming. We improve our classrooms because we know that they're going to be there. Now, if the accreditors are rarely detailed people, they will want to observe clinical teaching sessions or practical teaching sessions. So you really have to even groom the lecturers. This is not the time to crack jokes unnecessarily, you know. And of course, I've mentioned the issue of your document and record verification. You know, you must collect it from time to time. Then they'll look at your compliance and quality assessment. You must have the mechanism in place. I have a whole committee. When I was provost, I made sure that from the departments to the deans to the college, each had a committee on quality assurance, usually run by some guy that nobody likes because he likes maintaining standards, so that he makes sure that your quality assurance mechanisms are there. And then this is where you know your fate. The exit and the wrap-up meeting. They'll never really tell you what the decision is, but you can get an idea. And then afterwards, they'll send you a report. Usually, you hope it's a good report. And then your final accreditation decision, as has said. So this is the process universities have to have strategies for. Next slide, please. We also have the shotgun evaluation. This is where you are giving very little notice. And unlike the every 5 years, every 8 years, Prof. Haramani has said, they just give you 2 weeks and say, we want to come and check you out. And they'll do all those things I mentioned before. And this is why if you don't have a continuous process, they'll catch you on the hop, because they want to make sure you're not stage managing things. You know, they want to know what you really do routinely. You know, therefore they can confirm the authenticity of your standards and ensure that you are continuously ready. The problem is it increases stress on your staff and students. My students are always asking me, why are we always filling evaluation forms for everything? And I keep telling them that the accreditors can just turn up, you know, and then they say, well, you are one of the accreditors. I said, yes, but I'm not an accreditor for my school. I'm an accreditor for other schools. So you've got to do that. And it costs money. Particularly putting in those places, because getting all those staff in will be done. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is the other University of Ibadan. The other UI, this University of Ibadan. This is our shield. Erected separate forms means of sound mind and judgment. And these are students. This again was commissioned by one of our alumni. So who accredits the accreditors? Because by now you would understand that the people who accredit are like you and I. And if I was just to ask Prof. Haramani to come to my school and I go to his school, well, one of two things would happen. We're either friends or enemies. If we are friends, we go to his school and I say, oh, Prof. Haramani, everything is fine. You know? Oh, and he says, oh, look at this exam script. You look at it and say, oh, wonderful. Oh, by the way, the students got only 5% of the students pass. Oh, never mind, the students don't read anyway. You know, but if we are not friends, You know, when I go to his school and I say, how come 95% of students passed? Only 95% passed. What happened to the other 5%? You know, so here you go to one school that's your friend and you say 5% passed, and you say, oh, it's because the students are bad. But because you don't like the other guy, 95% passed, and you say only 95% passed. So accreditors are human beings too. So even the accreditors need to be accredited to make sure that they're doing things according to standards. And that is why it's important that you have global recognition. Somebody else is watching you to say what you're doing nationally is according to global standards. But I must emphasize at this point that Prof. Haramani's lecture must be taken in context. What the WFME has now concluded, and as I said, I was part of the 3 standards he mentioned, is to ensure that they're seen as principle-based, apart from the basic medical education. Basic medical education, you cannot but learn how to do certain things. But for the postgraduate medical education and for the CPD, they are principle-based and rely on the national accrediting bodies and the local institutions to use them for their own local purposes. Because we know that even within countries, the requirements are different, never mind between countries. So it's important that we know that. I'll mention that later. Next slide, please. And these are the, Prof. Haramani has mentioned these bodies, and I wouldn't state anything else about them because they all work together. Only to say that the ACGM is working with the World Federation in trying to ensure that we assist postgraduate medical education across the world. Next slide, please. Within Africa, we have these bodies that accredit internationally. That experience is really interesting because particularly with the West African colleges, where we have Francophone and Anglophone, it took us about 15 years before we could harmonize the various curricular and accreditation criteria because the systems are different. And then when you look at the Association of Medical Schools, which I represent, and AMCOA, which I'm part of, we now have Anglophone, Francophone, Lusophone, and I always say everything phone is in Africa. And they're all different. So you can only look at things from a principles point of view and from guidelines, because they're different resources, different training programs. So it's not an equalization, it's a standardization. You could be doing things different from what I'm doing, but it will be up to the same standard. It's when you want to equalize that you might have an issue, and we'll come to that in a minute. Next slide, please. Okay, so Prof. Usman and I met at this conference, which is where the decision as to have accreditors for the accrediting bodies came up. And what I've just said now is what is here. First, there is limited evidence on the efficacy of accreditation and regulation. What that means is that if you do not standardize, then it's difficult to have data that you can compare. Of course, this is because the standards vary globally. I've mentioned who is accrediting the accreditors, and therefore global accreditation and regulatory standards are required. That was decided in 2019. And that this should focus mainly on quality assurance. So, and that's why I said it's a risk reduction process. As I say when I'm training my residents in surgery, training is not about what you would do in any circumstance. I don't know what's going to happen. Training is about what you will not do. That's what makes you trained. It's not what you will do. What you will do depends on what the situation is. Is what you will not do regardless of what the situation is. So, for example, it will be an absolutely crazy surgeon that would go and do a laparotomy or an amputation without anesthesia in today's age, just give him a little bit of brandy and you start cutting off his leg. That's not going to happen unless it's an emergency. No trained person will do that. No trained person will do a cesarean section without giving an epidural or something. But how he's going to do it depends on whether it's a breech, whether it's a normal lie, whether the child is in distress. All those are the things that I cannot say what you do. So that's what accreditation is about. Quality assurance. What will you not do in teaching and evaluation? And global engagement and collaboration are key. Next slide, please. So this is what I was talking about. And this slide drew a lot of discussion yesterday. On the basis of what I've said, this is disparity. These are two children of the same age. And this is a strict kid, and this is a child in an SUV. So what is available to this child is not what is available to this child. Period. But when you want to talk about standards, this is what I meant by it's not equality. Equality means you give everybody the same standards. Well, this guy is tall, so now he's up to his waist and he can see. And this fence is the global standard. If you give everybody the same thing, this short guy, who's probably this guy, still can't see. And this other guy can see with one stool. He has one stool, but now he's way above. What you really want to do is to have equity. That means give everybody what they need to be able to get across the global standard. And in some instances, some may be great institutions, like the University of Indonesia, they don't need any assistance. Some may need just a leg up, and some may need 2 legs up. And that is for your national accrediting body to decide. And like I mentioned to the IAAHEH yesterday, even in teaching and evaluating students and indeed institutions, it depends on where they are. So if, for example, within the University of Indonesia, like my university, we have 3 tiers of hospitals. We have the teaching hospital, which works within the hospital, within the university. Then you have the general hospital, which is usually in a big town. Then we have a rural hospital that is in a village. The standards for accrediting each of those 3 hospitals for training is different. You cannot use the standards for a teaching hospital for a hospital in the rural area. You cannot even use it for the hospital in the state. So to use the example that I used yesterday, if there is an accident in a rural area and a patient is taken to a hospital in the rural area, the only standards you want to ensure in that instance is that they know how to manage the patient acutely, set a line, make sure the patient is safe and all, and transfer. They most likely won't have sets of surgeons. But for the general hospital that would receive that patient as a level 2 trauma center, then they would have a general surgeon that could manage most things, but most would not have a cardiothoracic surgeon and a neurosurgeon. Those are usually in the teaching hospitals. So it is their ability to evaluate the patient to say, oh, this patient does not have head injury, does not have cardiac injury, so we can manage that patient here safely. That is the standard you're looking for. Yet for the teaching hospital, now they, if they're level 1 trauma center, must have the full complement. So when you go and assess for the standards required for practice or for teaching and evaluating at that level, you must recognize the difference between this being the teaching hospital, this being the general hospital, and this being the rural hospital, as an example. And it is the same thing even with your university. So in my country, when we were doing the curriculum which I directed, which was the first fully documented competency-based medical education curriculum in the world at the time, long time ago now, we had a problem because immediately we finished, our national accrediting body and our NUC said, oh, we love this. We want to adopt it as a national standard. And I said, you can't. The reason you can't is because when we did this in my university, we had the largest number of faculty. My department of surgery at the time had 38 academic staff. That is more than the staff that dentistry at the time had, just my department. We had 9 divisions and we had at least 5 academic staff in each division. I had to find work for them. So we designed the curriculum to suit that number of staff. So if you now want to apply that to a university that has only 2/3 of that staff, you can't use the exact same document. So when we were going to change it to the national curriculum, I said, no, it's not going to be a national curriculum. It's going to be a national template. So we stripped it down to ensure that each university could then fill in the gap and expand it according to their resource level. And therefore, the institution, the document became nationally acceptable. And then the National Universities Commission went a bit further. They said, oh, we love the teaching philosophies. We want to use it for all undergraduate curricula, history, geology, geography. I said, wonderful. Again, you cannot use it as we have established it and developed it for medicine and dentistry and for clinical subjects. For you to use it for the humanities, for the sciences, again, we have to go to the principles and strip the principles down so you can use it across subjects. So now we have the philosophies of competency-based medical education being used for all disciplines in all the universities in Nigeria, but it is called the Core Curriculum Minimum Academic Standards. It is not as CBME is. It's the same philosophy that you've got to know what the requirements of each person is, or each institution, or each student, or each university for you to meet global standards, which is the FENS. The whole idea is everybody must be able to see the match. So some may need more, some may need less. And that is why we insist that national relevance is the most important aspect. And it is still the national accrediting bodies that are best able to decide what their institutions require to meet global standards, which is the FENS. Next slide, please. So, what are the challenges? And I'm coming to the end of my talk now. Well, I don't know about you, but we have colonial legacies, which we had to get rid of because we had the University of London giving us a curriculum we didn't understand. I'm not sure they understood it. But you know, the beauty of colonial heritage, for those of us who suffered it, is that long after the colonial guys have changed their curriculum, we're still using the old one, saying, you know, it's best. So we had to break that. For the curriculum I just described, we did after 62 years of using the University of London curriculum, which was a good curriculum for the UK, but wasn't very good for us. And to that extent, your funding and resource constraints, everybody needs more money and everybody needs more staff. I don't know if you're suffering from brain drain as we are, but fortunately, Indonesia does not have this. In many parts of the world, there are weak national regulatory bodies, which is why we needed global standards. And it's not just for the nation. There are nations that were training and are still training doctors and nurses and various health professionals. They would accredit the institution for training, but not for practice. So those would accept foreigners and they would train them, give them a certificate that they're a doctor or a nurse or pharmacist, but they cannot work in that country. And then they come back to my country, they've never seen a patient before in their life, but they say, I'm a doctor. So you got to be careful about that. Of course, everybody wants more human resources, so student enrollment pressure from governments. My government just woke up one morning and said, we now double the capacity of all colleges of medicine. They can now take twice the number of students. Huh? Where are the resources? Who's going to teach them? Where are they going to sleep? Which laboratories are they going to use? Government says we need more doctors. Okay. Lack of social and political support sometimes. Again, this is what I mentioned. In my country and in most countries, the academic accreditation is on one side, the professional accreditation is on another side, and they're sometimes fighting. The issue of quality assurance, and this, I think it's important. I'll show a slide to that, because are you accrediting to make sure you are producing graduates that are going abroad or improving your healthcare in your country? You've got to be careful. Next slide, please. So, despite these challenges, why do we do this? Well, Carl Rogers said the only person who is educated is the one who has learned how to learn and change. We don't like change as human beings. But when you're educated and you recognize that something is good, you've learned it and you must be ready to change. And that is the greatest challenge you'll have. And to get my university my college to agree to this white coat ceremony, there's a white coat ceremony to make sure that our students recognized that they were now going into a competency-based medical education curriculum. We set up this welcome to the clinical side, which has now been adopted by other schools. Next slide, please. So what are your strategies? Well, we've talked about alignment with global standards. Prof. Haramani has mentioned that. I've mentioned the fact that you really have to strengthen your internal quality assurance mechanisms. You must have this in place. You must engage with national and regional accreditation bodies by collaboration and international collaboration and twinning programs. Please, international collaboration is not necessarily global north and global south. Increasingly, we're finding out that it is best between global south and global south. And as I say whenever I'm on the global north side, if the global south was not as innovative and as good as we should be recognized to be, why are our graduates continuously attractive to them abroad? I'm the one who trains the doctors. Otherwise, you never take our doctors. So this international collaboration we should share amongst ourselves, and I was very glad to see that there is a lot of South-South collaboration with the IAAHEH. Next slide, please. Curriculum reform, you must continuously do. Our curriculum is now outdated. We're currently reviewing it again. You must make sure they're locally relevant. I've mentioned the social responsiveness. That is, they're addressing your own needs and they're accountable to your own people. You're already doing a lot of interprofessional education. Training and retraining of your faculty and incentivizing them, you cannot run away from it. Otherwise, you're going to lose your staff. And of course, we must continue to develop our infrastructure and mobilize resources through strategic investments. Next slide, please. You must develop your own local resources. And I think Indonesia is ahead here because there's a lot of textbooks in your local language. That is not common. Also, we did this with the WHO to make sure that we could have a manual that our general hospitals could use. We now have our own patients information leaflets in our own language. And this is an anatomy textbook in our local language so that we can communicate with our people better instead of trying to teach the whole population English, which is not your problem. Next slide, please. This is the best practices. I've mentioned this rarely, that when you're preparing, you must have a dedicated team. This is what I was saying about what you need to do, gap analysis, engagement. And then when they come, you must be prepared. It's nice to be hospitable and make sure everything goes smoothly. They like that. Do not try and show that you're hiding anything. They don't like that. You must be transparent and let them know if you have any challenges, and they'll understand that from your area. And you must demonstrate that you are committed to quality. That's what accreditation is all about. It's not really about passing or failing. It's that we know that there is room for improvement. And then once you finish, at the post-accreditation phase, you must address the recommendations you are given, institute continuous monitoring again for the next time, and celebrate your achievements. Let the staff know, particularly if you get 8 years, announce it. Announce which department was best. Announce, make people feel good about the accreditation process so that they're looking forward to the next one. Next slide, please. Impact, well, hopefully your graduates will become more competent. Hopefully your healthcare systems will be strengthened because they are now being run by increasingly competent professionals. More and more research would be done, both in terms of the clinical research, the administrative research, and the research that is required to improve your education. You get more international recognition and collaboration. And there are economic benefits because once you've improved your health system and you have a reputation, then you would attract not just international students to your university, but instances are that patients will come across borders. I have people coming from across borders for healthcare in Nigeria. Indeed, now in the UK, to see a urologist, as an example, is 4 months. And people are now consulting us in Nigeria, at least to get a first opinion, whilst they are waiting, because we have an international accreditation. So you could also get some economic benefits from that. Next slide, please. But you have to be careful about globalization. Next slide. Because this is an African woman going to the global market. Her luggage is on her head. Farm produce, she's got her goats, and she has a child behind her back. She goes to the global market and, next slide, comes back with a McDonald's, Diet Coke. She's lost her kids, she's lost her goats, and she's dressed in rags. The global market does not always benefit you if you're not careful. You've really got to be careful about these effects because it's real. Next slide, please. And this is the accreditation visit I mentioned. This is my dean, but you can see how studiously they're looking at my books. Both of them are my friends, but at this point they weren't friendly. And when we finished and they were happy, then they said, "Oh, let's take a photograph." Yeah. And this was just in October. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so in conclusion, accreditation and quality assurance in health professionals' education is a topical issue. International accreditation will contribute to the production of globally competent and recognized healthcare professionals. And despite the challenges as highlighted, achieving excellence in international accreditation is a transformative journey. It should transform you, and indeed it should transform the world. Several global mechanisms have been established, as you've been told, and it's now mandatory to maintain global standards and local relevance. Indonesia is already ahead of ensuring that this is done in a multidisciplinary and multi-organization and multinational collaboration. But renewed medical migration is a major threat and must be addressed. Otherwise, you train all these guys, they go abroad, and there's nobody to train those who are coming after. So we must not kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Next slide, please. So again, let me thank the IAAHEH for inviting me to Indonesia. This is the sunrise. for the Asia-Africa Quality Assurance Forum in Medical and Health Professions Education. We're looking forward to increased collaboration between the two regions. And I must thank the University of Indonesia for giving me this opportunity to address you and also allowing me to go back to my institution to say I gave a lecture in the senior UI because indeed you were established before us. Next slide, please. And I hope I'll be able to welcome you at some point to Ibadan, and these are my students. Thank you very much. Any questions? Because I'm told that there's a beach somewhere here, so.
So thank you, Professor. We already have, I think, more than 50% now in the Zoom. They also want to ask questions. So then we give the first, yes, we give the first from here. Yes, 1, 2, 3. Yes, thank you. Both of the lecturer could be asked, Professor Haramani and also Prof. Olapade, please.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for the enlightenment and also, the encouragement for us to face the accreditation. But actually, we just now move to the qualitative.
Excuse me, would you please introduce yourself?
Oh, okay.
The Faculty of Medicine.
Okay, I'm Vika Ekayanti. I'm from UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. I am now Vice Dean of Academic Affairs, and just now we have already did our accreditation, but with the previous format, so 9 criteria, and now we move to qualitative and with 8 criteria. And what I want to ask you, sometimes there is, we need to know the tips and tricks how to write down all of our achievement or accomplishment in the report, because the step, firstly, we need to inform by our document, right? That's why sometimes that, and I don't know, maybe it's more technical, but I think it's important for us to know the tips and tricks for the accreditation, because I think when the first we submitted our we submit the document, you also will assess and give some maybe what is it, a mark or score for the document, and afterward when the visitation you have also the score, and you will combine, right? And also the validator and the next also the committee. I don't know how, I think that's how we did in we've done it in Indonesia. So yeah, maybe you can explain for us for our better preparation, and tips and tricks. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we move to the next, the second question, please? That one.
Thank you. My name is Ridwan from President University. Now I'm a head of medical study program. What I want to ask is about a chance of the new medical school to get international accreditation. Do we have a same chance with the old medical school in Indonesia to get international accreditation? Because we are moving from the 9 criteria to 8 criteria. Okay, that is the first question. And then the second question is about if we accept international students from, for example, African countries, is the bachelor degrees from our medical school that has been nationally accredited by accrediting agency, well recognized by the African countries for bachelor degrees, because there are some issues that many students from from foreign students wants to apply to our medical school, but we are confused. Is our bachelor degree recognized by the African countries or maybe foreign countries? Thank you.
And then the third in the first row, please. It's better with the mic.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sidik from Universitas Pasundan. So for Prof. Haramani, we'd like to say that our certificate for accreditation is valid until December 2026. And according to your circle of accreditation, it takes some time to start. So what I want to know is, when should we best to start the process? In my calculation, it's about 6 months to 9 months before the certificate is over. So am I too soon or am I too late? Okay, to Professor Olapade, I still don't understand. If we have to have a local share value in our education, meanwhile, the accreditation is done by external assessor. So the one who knows best about the local content is, of course, the local itself. So how can the assessor from outside may know the standard of how good or bad is the local content mentioned? That's it. Yeah, I know only one word in Hausa language, nagode. Nagode.
Thank you for the question. Please, I think the first will be given to Professor Olapade to answer the questions. There are 3 from UIN, we call it UIN, the university, and then from President University and from University of Pasundan. The first one is how to make a self-evaluation report, is it?
Yes.
Please.
Thank you very much for those questions, and thank you very much for learning how to pronounce my name well. Better than I can pronounce yours, I must say. Filling the documents, it's a headache. And the only way to do it is, as I mentioned in the pre-site visit phase, is to have a mock accreditation committee. Usually you would have that led by an experienced professor who has probably held several positions within the university or the medical school, has undergone several accreditation processes himself, and is about to retire. So he no longer has any political leanings. So that way he doesn't have to be nice. And because he's older, he's more mature, he's more patient. His experience, yes. If it is a young Turk who is still trying to let everybody know that, I have a slide that I normally show my, the eagle has landed, I'm now in charge. You have a lot of problems. And because that experienced professor would most likely have gone on several accreditation visits outside, he knows what they're looking for. And just to cross-answer some of the other questions, accreditation, like I told you, is about principles. It's not about specifics. It looks like it's specifics, but no, it's not. It's about the principles. So, for example, when we accredit your examinations, we want to accredit that they are a standard. We don't really care whether it's MCQ or SKI, whatever. It's the quality. So if there's some questions you cannot possibly ask in essay that you will tell me can give you information about clinical skills. That has to be in OSCE. Equally, you go to OSCE and somebody says, list the causes of hematuria, list the treatment. That's not a clinical question. That's an essay question. So they are looking for the principles. That's why an external person can come and assess you. Because he may not know what diseases you have, but he can tell from the questions you are asking whether this question is going to answer that class or evaluate that class of skill. If you want to test knowledge, we know the broadest way of doing that is through MCQ. So you cannot ask in MCQ, what is the process of managing a patient with trauma? Huh? That's a bad MCQ question. So I don't need to go to your hospital to know that that's a bad question. Equally, if we go to your facilities, and that's why the academic accreditation is a bit different from the professional accreditation. So in our country, the academics don't spend a lot of time in the hospital, but the professionals do. And that's why we want to see your facilities. What is the standard of facility you have in your accident and emergency? Like I explained yesterday, you don't have to have all the latest equipment, but the equipment you have, is it well maintained? The staff, are they familiar with that equipment? Do they know how to use it? There's absolutely no point having a nice new robot and say, oh, we have a robot. Well, who is your urologist? Well, it's Professor Olaopa. Oh, really? Professor Olaopa, how many robotic surgeries have you done? Oh, I watched YouTube yesterday. No, you won't pass. So it's the principles. So to fill your questionnaire, you need someone who's experienced. And it doesn't matter whether it's 8 criteria, 20 criteria. As I said yesterday at the IAAHEH, we keep changing the standards because we must match up with what is going on in the current times. In another 5 years, all these standards are going to change. I can assure you about that. They're all going to change, but the principles will be the same. So, for example, the 2023 PGME standards, we spent a lot of time making sure that they were adaptable to the different regions. To that extent, they are different. What they're looking for is the principle of your training, which makes it easy for us to standardize across regions, but we cannot be specific. So we must recognize that your ability to demonstrate familiarity with your training programs that will achieve a purpose. As I mentioned yesterday, you can have an ICU that doesn't have any equipment, but you have trained staff who are monitoring the patient regularly. The National Institutes of Health carried out a survey, published it about 5 years ago. Results between the most equipped and the least equipped ICU, the same. The difference is the training of the staff. So you have staff in a very well-equipped ICU who are waiting for the alarm to go off, busy eating McDonald's on their phones until the alarm goes, gang, 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 then they run to the patient. That ICU is not as useful as a staff, as an ICU that has very little equipment, but has staff that are monitoring the patient regularly. The outcomes are the same. Go check it out. So indeed, it is important that we understand what accreditation is looking for so that you don't allow the different criteria to disturb you as they change. No, they're looking for the same thing: quality healthcare, quality health professionals training that will translate to quality healthcare. The mismatch is what causes the problem. And for the new medical schools, therein lies your problem. Do you have the experienced staff that would enable you to translate training to practice? In my country, we say that the young man may have as many new clothes as the old man, but he can't have as many rags. The old man has more rags, but the point is the rags were once new clothes. You know, and what that means is that the older man has experience. And that's why in the good old days before the explosion of medical schools, most medical schools were twinned with an older medical school to sort of midwife them before they became independent. That's what happened to most medical schools. My school was twinned with the University of London, which is why we had the old curriculum. But even Ibadan has birthed Ilorin, Jos, Port Harcourt. You know, they were with us first as colleges. Then after a few years, they're allowed to be independent. So that for the first few years, they're giving out University of Ibadan degrees. We were giving out University of London degrees until 1967. Before we now started, 1962, sorry. And all our training was done in Nigeria, starting that 1962. Before then, you did half in Nigeria, half abroad. So you need to partner. This is what I was talking about, South-South collaborations. New medical schools need to partner with the older medical schools because experience cannot be bought. And most older schools will not let go their experienced professors, but they will borrow you so they can go and be your vice chancellor, your dean, or even just on sabbatical. My school always has people on sabbatical. I mean, everybody's going everywhere. In fact, we had one vice chancellor who was not a doctor who used to say that anytime he gets on a plane going out of the country and he doesn't see somebody from the College of Medicine, he's not going on that flight. There's something wrong with that flight because every time he flies, there's somebody from the College of Medicine going somewhere to do something. So you need to twin so that you can borrow from the experience of the old schools instead of trying to develop your own, which takes many years. And that also goes with the issue of recognition of your degrees. So if you're just a new university without established names in your faculty, and people look at you and say, so who are they? You know, it'd be difficult to get your degrees recognized. But if they look at your staff list and adjunct professors are people that they can check and they go on PubMed and they know that, man. And the truth of the matter is that I'm here now. It's because of recognition. Medicine is still, health professionals, education is still quite small globally. So we know each other because whenever you want to become a professor, at least in the older universities, your papers are sent to an external assessor. In my university tomorrow, you can't get promoted to professor until somebody from somewhere, Indonesia, Malaysia, UK, looks at it. So you need those people on your list for your degrees to be recognized. If all you have brilliant young Turks, as they say, then we'll ask you to wait until you have some more rags before we recognize you. And of course, your facilities matter. I think I've answered all the, and I've mentioned how external assessors can assess you. Yeah, it's because they're looking at the connection between your training and your outcomes according to established standards. They don't have to be there. It's the same way when you send a paper to an international journal. They send it to a reviewer. He doesn't come to your laboratory. He doesn't come to your school, but he reads it and he says, yeah, I think this is true. Or he reads it and he says, I don't like this. Same way.
Thank you, Prof. Maybe adding something about you have mentioned about time higher education. It is also something that come into mind for people in Africa to look at the quality of faculty of medicine or the university.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, to answer your question, how do you feel it? So it's a game. You've got to understand, in truth, it is a game. But it's a game of standards. So because of my experience with accreditation and with going around the world, when I became provost, I knew that one of the things that I had to do was to get my college ranking up. But I knew the criteria because I'd done it separately. So I made sure that a lot of my capital expenditure was geared towards things that I knew would count. I wasn't just spending money anyhow and being a populist. And, people ask me, oh, you haven't gone around visiting the department. That's a politician's job. I'm not a politician. I need to get my ranking up. So a bit like knowing I need to get accreditation, what are the standards for accreditation? We started working at it. I knew there were issues with ICT. You've got to get your ICT up. You've got to ensure that your grant levels are up. And you've got to ensure that you're visible. You've got to ensure that your students' records are there for them to see. So before me, the students will get a prize and nobody recognized. No, we had a whole list. So, he got a cleaning prize in his local community. He's very good in his mosque. Put it on the website. Put it on the website. You needed a 24-hour accessible website. Spend money on it. You needed an interruptible supply. Spend millions making sure that you could click. It's the same thing with accreditation. That's why I said it's a game. It's just that it's a game of standards. Because, of course, when you do all that, your ranking goes up. So within 2 years, our ranking went from number 15 in Africa to number 4, behind 3 institutions I couldn't possibly beat. Cairo, Mansoura, and Cape Town. And the reason for that, they were all started before the 1900. I was 1960. I'm 1948. There's no way I can beat those guys. They were a century ahead of me, But for sub-Saharan Africa, we went from number 12 to number 1. Just by understanding what the criteria are and shooting for it, trainer of trainers. Oh, they love that. Times higher. But you have to show that you are doing it. It's the same thing when the accreditors come. Those are the documents you need. Oh, we're doing training of trainers every 3 months. No, but don't say it verbally. Have the evaluation forms. Have certificates. This is the best. Have the list. That's why I said it's resource demanding. And you have to get into the culture. Have your annual reports. I still have a problem with that, even in my school. How many papers have you published? How many conferences have you gone? I just told Amelia there. Even now, every day I'm sending back pictures. Oh, this is what I did. By this evening, my photographs here will be at home so they can see that I'm not away having a holiday. So you've got to get that into your culture, and then your ranking will go up. And then the next question is, okay, the guys behind will come and try and overtake you. Good. So you then try and overtake them again. That is how the quality improves, because everybody is now trying to be at least better than they were before. And that's why I said it's a game.
Thank you. Then Prof. Haramani, please. There are some question, one or two questions at least.
Thank you very much. I think there are already was given the answers by Professor Olapade, and I just want to add something about the preparation of this accreditation. And we know we move from quantitative to qualitative assessment because of what the standard is used globally. All of the accreditation globally use this qualitative. And we understand that there will be a very much change from quantitative to qualitative, how to make the report. So for this accreditation procedure, there is a nurturing process for 8 weeks. And the nurturing process for 8 weeks, they'll be carried out by 5 meetings. And the first one is just for introduction and so on. And in every meetings, the assessor will ask the program study to write down 1 or 2 criteria. And then they give the feedback. And at the end, there will be a preliminary self-report. And after that, the program study will prepare their own final self-evaluation report in 7 weeks. So as Professor Olapade mentioned, it has to be part of your internal quality assurance. You have to know the standard and the criteria. So when we look at all this self-evaluation report based on the analysis of these 8 criteria, then the assessor will know that, what are you doing with its criteria. So there will be, socializing or clinical experience or activity for the program study to understand the standard, to understand the criteria, to understand what is the procedure of the accreditation, and how to write SAR, and how to make a preparation, just like pre-accreditation, site visit, and post-accreditation. I think that is what I get here.
There is a question when to start preparing for accreditation.
Yeah.
In your opinion.
Too early or too late? I think we recommend that you apply for accreditation 1 year. 1 year before your current accreditation status is expired. Yeah.
Professor Olapade said that 18 months before they already work for accreditation. And it is
the earlier the better, because actually the external quality assurance is just a continuum of the internal quality assurance. So there should be no difference, and you have just continue. This is the continuum of internal quality assurance to the external quality assurance. Yeah.
And there is a very nice mention about what is a team for accreditation.
Yes, a very good team. And that is why in our office, there are only old professors. Because we have no politics, we don't want to have nothing to do except the accreditation. And then, so it's very good advice. When you build a team, just like old professor that has experience in several departments and several activities, and he has very, with wisdom, and he is very not to everything in a hurry, and very detailed and so on. Yeah.
So there will be another people who want to ask questions. Is okay, Prof? Yes. Okay. Yes, please, Professor Dr. Wawang, and then yes, doctors, and then one more there left. So there will be 3. And then I will do an appointed somebody from the Zoom. Is there any question? Please just record that one. Okay, please.
Thank you, Professor O. I would like to ask about because I am interested with your last picture.
Would you please?
Last picture.
Introduce yourself to.
Oh, okay, sorry. I think you know me. Sorry. I am Wawang Sukarya from the Faculty of Medicine, HAMKA. HAMKA is one of the Muhammadiyah Faculty of Medicine. Yeah. Sorry, jadi lupa nanyanya nih. Yeah, I would like to, I'm mentioning with your last picture about when somebody going abroad to global market and back with the difference. With the different, and the second one, what of the equity and equality. Yeah. I would like to ask you whether the global standard can be adjusted with a local regulation or not, related to the can be adjusted to the local regulation related to your picture. The second one is the naive question. Yeah. There are three names almost the same in your name. Yeah. Your name is there a word like the same. Can you explain about the meaning of your name? Your name. There are three words almost the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wawang. Then the second question will be, yes, please. Oh yeah, you have the mic.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Prof. Ovi. My name is Dewa Ayu from I am an academic quality assurance unit from Faculty of Dentistry Universitas Indonesia. My question is to Prof. Haramani, but already answered the same question from Dr. Vika, Prof. already answered, and several study programs without our faculty are currently undergoing preparation for 9 criteria accreditation, while my department, conservative dentistry, study program is advancing toward nurturing 8 criteria. This is maybe just for your awareness. Yeah. Thank you for insightful presentation for both of you, and I am interested in your statement. This is maybe the same question with Prof. Siapa? Prof. Wawan, yeah. That addressing disparity with equality and not equality. Yeah, because dental faculties in our countries maintain a varying level of academic quality insurance. Could you elaborate further on that? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last question from the back. The third one, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Veda Makia. I'm here as a Vice Dean of Academic Affairs from UPN, Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Jakarta, in Pondok Labu, south of Jakarta. Nowadays, we are preparing for applying for international accreditation because our previous accreditation status was ended in September 2026. So we still have like 6 until 8 months to prepare for that international accreditation. We have read the 4 book that has given, and we are applying for, now we are in the current status of applying for submitting many requirement documents, and such as our legal documents, that everything that needs to be translated into English. And maybe it's like a testimonial for me as a stakeholder that is current in preparing for all the documents. We are having difficulties in translating all the legal documents because perhaps that it needs not just the understanding from us, also from the understanding from the university as the one that going to release that documents. And so it will take our efforts actually. I think that question will deliver to Professor Haramani. And the second questions, I have read that book 2, and there is a criteria for compliance and how we going to know the extent of we do. For example, in MISH criteria 1, like vision and mission, the meeting should be attended by internal and external stakeholders. How many stakeholders are we going to put into our documents? Whether you just categorize is this enough when we have one stakeholder and another stakeholders, or we can have a lot of stakeholder, and how are you going to put in your review? I mean, in the point of view of assessors. And the third, this is in my faculty of medicine, we have a pharmacy program, bachelor degree program of pharmacy, and also we have a radiology specialist program. And the question is, I'm trying to encourage the course coordinator to be part of this international accreditation. I mean, to apply also for international accreditation. And we have asked, I don't know who we have asked, somebody from the LAM-PTKes said that for the pharmacy, international accreditation is not happening now. Is that true or not? And then, because in that point of view, our university quality assurance unit thinks that for the pharmacy, the program should not apply for this international accreditation by LAM-PTKes, but should be applied to another organization. And how about the residency as well? Because our radiology program is reluctant to undergo for this international accreditation because she said that the course coordinator said that it is not customized by the radiology board or collegium, something like that. Maybe this is the question to Professor Haramani as well. Thank you very much.
And we have one question from the Zoom. Can you show us the question? Yes. This is from Dr. Risha from UMJ. What are the most frequently asked questions by the international accreditation team to the faculty during the site visit? And how can an institution build and maintain a sustainable quality culture after achieving accreditation? And does obtaining international accreditation make it easier for a faculty of health sciences to attract international students, especially for private university? I think it is. So maybe the first, we give it to Prof. Olapade first. Yes. Yes, the undergrads. Even I know that a lot of questions should be addressed to Prof. Haramani.
Yes.
Please, Prof. Olapade.
Thank you very much. So, will the international accreditation enhance or attract students? That's just yes. Once people see you have international accreditation, they'll want to come more. You have more students being interested in coming to your institution, and faculty too. And it's not just about them coming. It would attract more research collaborations. Your staff will get invited out. We in Ibadan, for example, anytime there's something to do with curriculum within Nigeria and sometimes outside Nigeria, they call us because we've done the curriculum and we have international recognition. So yeah, that's why you want it. That's why I said it's a game. That's the attraction. That's why you spend a lot of efforts. How can an institution build and maintain a sustainable quality culture after achieving accreditation? You just have to have leaders who understand that it must be done. Because like I said, everybody goes to sleep between accreditations unless it becomes a culture. And for it to become a culture means, as I mentioned, you have to have a team within the department, within the faculty, within the university, who are continuously asking for these things. It's not easy. And unless you do that, people will just fall into their standard ways. For example, most lecturers will not change their lecture notes unless they're pushed. I'm sure Prof. Haramani and Amelia will tell you, I had to spend at least 5 hours changing this, like the lecture I gave yesterday, to make it suitable for this environment. Otherwise I could have used the same lecture, but it's the same thing, but it's a different audience. And what this audience wants is different from what I was discussing with accreditors. It's the same thing with your students. Every year something is new. We were saying yesterday about AI. Now AI is in. You cannot ask questions the way you used to ask before AI. That is just foolish. And I was saying yesterday, and everywhere I go, I tell them, anytime I'm setting questions now, I put it to AI. Once AI can answer it, it's a bad question. So if you ask, I'm a urologist, if you ask, how would you manage prostate cancer? Student would answer it from AI. If you say, how would you manage prostate cancer in a 70-year-old Indonesian man from a low socioeconomic background who presents to a level 2 hospital in Jakarta at 8 p.m. at night in acute urinary retention? There's no way AI can ever answer that question.
That includes the, yes.
So you have to continuously adapt. And that is what quality assurance is for. Somebody needs to go and check. And that person has to be an experienced professor because everybody hates that person. He's the one that makes their life difficult. So that's why you need a Prof. Haramani who's no longer wanting to be vice chancellor. He's retired, he's more interested in his grandchildren. He's not worried. He's just saying, sorry, you got, and then he says it in a nice way. In his nice fatherly way, you've got to do this. So quality assurance is continuous training and retraining. And that is actually how global standards can affect local relevance. So there's this, I was saying to Mr. Niels yesterday when we were going up, we must understand the difference between adopting global standards and adapting global standards. What the IAAHEH is doing is adapting global standards. If you try to adopt, that's what I told you was the problem with our curriculum from UK. It's meant, we are developing countries. They designed the airport in Lagos many years ago. They designed it after Schiphol. So one of our presidents or ministers went to Amsterdam and said, oh, this is a very nice airport. Bring it to Nigeria. So they brought it to Nigeria. Nigeria is a tropical country like Indonesia. They designed it just like it was designed for Amsterdam, that is a temperate country. They take light, you can't see anything. But the best part is they brought snow plows because they just adopted Schiphol and brought it to Lagos. We've never seen snow before, and I hope we never see snow in Lagos. But they brought snow plows. That's the same thing when you adopt global standards that are meant for a different context. But what is adaptation? We needed an efficient airport that recognized that we were in a tropical country. So if you go to Ethiopia, the airport is just a shed. It's just a shed. It's just like this room. It's just that it's very big and they've compartmentalized it. And they have big windows. It's just a shed. But they need little air conditioning. They need little light, except at night, you know, and they don't have any internal walls. So there's free flow, but it's an airport. And they have all the security there and all that. That is adapting. And that's what you got to do with your standards. And that's why I said it is how effective your training mechanisms are at achieving global standards of healthcare. Global standards of healthcare are transparently unique, the same. Somebody comes to you pregnant, what is your birth rate? The maternal mortality morbidity, what is it? What are your complications post-surgery? What are the chances of surviving after an accident? What is your nutritional status like? All those things are universal. You can't have everybody who comes to your hospital with multiple trauma dying. You can't have every woman that gives birth dying and you say that's local. You know, how you achieve the same standard is what the global standards would address. And that's why there are now more guidelines. And finally, the equity versus equality, that's about the same answer. The lady who went to the market had a wrong view. She thought development was about eating burgers and having a Diet Coke. No, it's about having good food and making sure that your society is sustainable. So you can't afford to lose all your children. That's not going to work. So being in nice, decent clothes, and I'm glad to see most of us are in quote unquote traditional clothes, as long as we're not naked. But a few years ago, I would have come here with a shirt and a tie and a coat. Sometimes you see people from my nature, they wear heavy coat. That don't make sense. But you have to decide in your institution how you are going to ensure equitable distribution of your resources to ensure you attain the same standards. You have to do that. And that's what I said yesterday at LAM-PTKes. That's where we are going to remain relevant because nobody can come from anywhere to tell us what standards we need for our country because our local health needs are different. So in the designing the specifics, that is up to them. But in determining what the effect of those specifics are is what international accreditation will do.
A very nice point, Professor. So we will remember it. Not blindly adopt, but to adapt efficiently. Yes. It is very things. I know now why then LAM-PTKes do it as an international accreditation, not just adopt from outside, but make an international accreditation that really, what we call it as adapting to our situation in Indonesia, because we have a very different situation. I don't like the snow, plus like in our airport also, our airport is should be different, tropical airport. Thank you, Professor. And Prof. Haramani, a lot of questions about accreditation because it is new for us to this.
Thank you very much. I think there will be many questions and details about this new accreditation procedure. And please be patient because we are going to organize accreditation clinic at the end of this month and also in August. All the question will be answered in a clinic that will last about 20 hours, 2.5 days. So we will have 2.5 days to discuss all this about what kind of question and what is the qualitative approach. So we have to understand that the qualitative assessment is actually focused on process, on perspective, on experience, on meanings through non-numerical data by interview, focus group discussion, looking at the classroom, simulation, facility, document check, and everything. So this is really a very lengthy process and very detailed. And at the end, the assessor have to write a report. And when before they submit the report to LAM-PTKes, they have to discuss the report with the program study, and probably there are some feedbacks that will be adopted in the final report. So I think there is one question or several questions. The assessment will be done by many questions, and there will be open question, probing, clarification, confirmation, hypothetical question, and also the triangulation question from several standard and triangulation question from several stakeholders. And there is question about stakeholders. And you know that stakeholders usually student, faculty, supporting staff, and the management, and also the alumni and the hospital who use the alumni and the community and so on. So it depends on the context of the program study, what is the complete stakeholders that they have to involve. And also the stakeholder has not only to involve in the process of this learning and experience, but they have to get what kind of benefit when they get involved in the process and what is their contribution to the process. So they involve the process, they get the benefit, and what kind of contribution when they get involved in, you know, in writing and values, in writing means and objective and so on. So that is, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Please.
Just about that process, I just want to emphasize what Prof. Haramani has said and to simplify it in one or two ways. One, the issue of qualitative versus quantitative. What the qualitative assessment tries to do is to ask you to demonstrate what you do, not what you know. And that is actually the difference. What do you do? So it's like the knowledge-based education, and that's why it's called competency-based, otherwise known as qualitative. So, and that's why I say you must have evidence that we do this. And that's why you must say, you can't just say, oh, we know how to train. No. We've trained our trainers, we do, and this is the evidence that we have done it. That is why it's qualitative. And that's why you must get into that habit. So it's the same thing and the reason it's important for the accreditation is that we hope that you translate that to your teaching. There is a lot of difference between what a student knows and what a student does, and what a student can do. So you have to be able to change your assessment from, oh, my student knows this. My student can do this, and my student can show that he can do this. So they're asking you to show that you can train. That's what the qualitative is. And the effectiveness of how you can train, which means how you are training, is why you need your stakeholders. That's why you got to be very careful with your stakeholders, particularly the community, the host community. They have to say, we are benefiting from your graduates and from your training. And I'll give you an example quickly about how that affected us. When we were going to change our curriculum from the traditional based curriculum to the competency-based medical education curriculum, we had several stakeholder meetings, and the most important for me were the end users and the host community. And they told us three, four things that changed our curriculum. One is the one we had from London had smatterings of, that is, a little bit of ENT and eye. But when we went to the stakeholders, we found out that the private practitioners, because of what was happening in the community, had more patients with eye problems and ear problems than we ever thought. So we had to increase the length of time given to those specialties in our training instead of just raw surgery, raw medicine. The other thing was that we found out from the stakeholders, again, the employers of our graduates and the community, that there was a lot more mental illness than we knew. So not only did we have to increase the number of psychiatrists, but that was too far away. That's another 7 years. We needed to increase the qualitative capacity of the average graduate. So we had to not only increase the amount of time they spent in psychiatry, but we made psychiatry a separate exam. So that is the reason why you must engage with your stakeholders. And that's what the accreditors will want to see. So if your stakeholders come and say, well, we have eye problems, we have ear problems, we have psychiatric problems, and you've given them only a little time in your teaching and training, then there is a mismatch. So I can assess you.
Again, a good point for this. Always try to adapt it with what happened in our situation. So that will be the question from the assessors.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, professors. Is there still any other question? We have still times. Yes? One question.
I have more questions. Thank you. How many Faculty of Medicine do you have in your country? How many?
School of Medicine.
42.
42. You know, here in Indonesia, 130 now. 133 now. And
No, well, that's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah.
Establishment of medical schools has always had more politics involved than anything else. And increasingly, it is having more business involved than anything else. So as a result, in my country, and I'm sure maybe the same thing, every local government wants a medical school.
Yeah, the same here.
Yeah. So, and if they can get the law passed in the National Assembly, then you get a medical school. And then because of the requirement for health professionals, the private sector is becoming involved because the cost, the government, again, politics, the government doesn't want to charge a lot for the state schools. So the private entrepreneurs come in and say, well, you can't get into state schools, and then the private entrepreneurs get in. So the question is, do you have the staff?
Yeah.
That's the question. And that again is why accreditation comes in. And because we are aware of the politics, that is where international accreditation comes in. Because if there was no international accreditation, the national agencies, be they government or independent, will find it very difficult to stand up to the government of the day and say, no, no more medical schools. You can't do that. But if you go to the national government and you say you have to meet these international criteria for your graduates to be recognized outside of your country, then they become a little bit more reasonable. So all over the world, and it's not an Indonesian problem, it's not a Nigerian problem. I just told you, in Hungary, for example, there are several schools that are not recognized internationally. Ukraine, Uzbekistan, there are many. Everybody wants to produce doctors and nurses. The question is, what is their quality? So that's why you need international accreditation. So I'll tell you a little joke that's not a joke. So when I was provost, my government decided we needed more doctors. And the universities were resisting. So because the admission is controlled by a pseudo-government agency, they just increased the number of students that they were admitting to my medical school. After we selected what we wanted, they just added some more. And my vice chancellor came to me and said, oh, we have to take these students. I said, what? I said, but no, we can't. He said, oh, the government says that we will get more money after we have taken the students. I said, since when did that ever happen? But the vice chancellor was under pressure. So I said, no problem. Fortunately, at that time, I was already president of the Association of Medical Schools in Africa. So I just wrote them a reply to say, well, thank you very much for doing this, but you are in violation of the criteria of the WFME for admission, blah, 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 blah. And if you continue this way, then we would have to reconsider the accreditation of your recognition of your students for international accreditation. And that was how we stopped it. So that way my job was safe. I wasn't writing as provost, I was writing as the president. Because if left alone, all governments will just proliferate medical schools. But it's the standards, particularly with the basic sciences for the nurses, for the, and that's why you need international accreditation.
Thank you.
There any other question from the floor? Yes, Professor Imam, please. Prof. Imam is the head of our standard.
Thank you, Prof. Ovi. Thank you, Prof. Olapade Olaopa. Yeah, thank you for your excellent lecture or presentation. It's about your last slides in the summary. One of the statement is about the maintenance of global standard and local relevance is mandatory. It is very important for us to understand about global standard and local relevance. Could you elaborate more about that to understand about between the global and local relevance? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a continuing discussion. Indeed, we've gotten to the point where a new word has been created called glocalization, which is a combination of global and local relevance. It's called glocalization of your health professionals' education. And that is because of what I said, that the real goal is to ensure that your health professionals training institution or institutions are training healthcare workers, health professionals whose competencies, whose skills, their attitude, skills, and knowledge are directed at resolving local problems. And in doing so, they are achieving global standards of healthcare. That's all we're interested in. So, for example, in my country, to give an example, we're having this huge debate now. So they took my curriculum, as I said, and they decided, oh, this is a wonderful curriculum. Oh, it's the next best thing to sliced bread. We're going to use it for everybody. Well, okay. But the North has different problems from the South. So in our curriculum, we had domiciled it for the local environment. And how did we do that? We had what we called prioritization of knowledge. So 50% of the time spent instructing healthcare workers in those institutions was supposed to be spent on must-knows, must be able to do. These were conditions that were within that locality. In my locality, malaria, typhoid, diarrhea, prostate cancer, whatever is prevalent in that environment. 30% was on should knows, should be able to do. So the healthcare worker should be able to attend to diseases that are outside of the region, but within the country. Because there are differences. And the remaining 20% was on may-knows, which were things international. So irritable bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, Sjogren's disease, we hardly ever see that. But it's a living document. So, for example, in the time that we started that curriculum and completed it, viral hemorrhagic diseases were not prevalent. There was no Ebola. Lassa fever was discovered in Nigeria, but was not in the area. So that was a should know. Ebola came in and caused problems. Within 5 years, it became a must know. Same thing with COVID. Influenza viruses were mostly outside of us, apart from the cold. So that would have been a may-know. Monkeypox would have been a may-know. But once it became a worldwide epidemic, you shift it to a must-know. So that way, you have to continuously revise your document to your local environment. So what then happened was the guys in the National University Commission decided, oh, you know what? Let's just tell them what to do 70% of the time and ask them to look at 30% as may-knows. Doesn't work. Because the diseases in one area, so in the north, they have a lot more zoonosis because there's a lot more cattle, there's a lot more goat herds and all that. So they have that. But the guy who did the curriculum is in Lagos. So he put that in may-knows and caused trouble, you know? So the issue of the global standards is your ability to address your local problems as identified by you through your host community to global standards of care, not equipment too. Not equipment. So we had this discussion once in 2007 at the SIU. I'm a urologist, and I was on the board of the Society Internationale de Urologie. And I was on the scientific program committee 2009, and it's the World Congress, and there was nothing on open prostatectomy. So the next year, I said, there's nothing here for us. There's no open prostatectomy. There's this. And one of the top guys in urology said, open prostatectomy? That is a barbaric operation. I said, barbaric? I said, yes. He said, nobody does this. You need to teach all your urologists how to do a TURP and laser. Laser was just coming in then. And I said, oh, really? So we had a huge debate, and it was such a debate that they decided, you know what? We're going to put it on the program at the next meeting for us to have a debate as to which prostatectomy was best. So we had, in Fukuoka of 2012, we had a debate. Which is the best prostatectomy? Open, TURP, green laser, and then there was red laser, you know. And they said the laser people should come first. Well, open prostatectomy came last. Laparoscopic, that was the other one, because there were 5, laparoscopic. Well, guess what? For the 4 modern techniques, the presenters, when you looked at the mean size of the prostates they were dealing with, it was 32 grams. These were small prostates. The mean size of the prostate I take out is 180 grams. So there you are using laser for 40 minutes to take out a 30-gram prostate. How many minutes are you going to use to take out 350 grams, 400 grams? So that is localization of your technique. Now, the debate is, what is your outcome? So we now looked at our complication rates, reoperation rates, transfusion rates, hospital stay. That is the global standards. And on every one of those standards, we matched. And open prostatectomy won the day for large prostates. So if you read modern textbooks now, they'll tell you anything above 80 grams. The preferred way of removing that prostate is open prostatectomy. Now, that doesn't mean people are doing that, but that's because they don't know how to do it open anymore. But at least it is accepted that, no, you cannot use a laser to remove a 400-gram prostate. Your complication rate is going to be crazy. So if you're in an environment with small prostates, you can do laser. But if you're in an environment with large prostates, then the global standard will be open prostatectomy, as an example.
So again, adapted to our situation.
So this,
please,
yeah, very important to have the local context, but because, the healthcare landscape is shifting, the shifting of the healthcare landscape has to be followed by the revise of the curriculum, as Professor Olapade mentioned, and also the integration of the technology, and also there is now what we call global health and culture competence. So this is what we are going to give to the student, the global health and cultural competence. And when we talk about local context, we have to talk about also the social accountability of our program study. We have to show that what we are doing is benefiting the community, and then we have to take care of what is the need of the local community. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, professors. Both of our professors already give us a lot of insight into our job as to maintain our quality with this accreditation. So we come to the end of our meeting today. We will have a great lunch in the level 12. All of you is invited. But before, we will have a picture outside of this room. We have a picture together, Prof. And then tomorrow, we still have a very important and interesting lecture from Prof. Olapade. That's about lesson learned from specialist and subspecialist medical training program. Because Professor Olapade, both as a teacher and also a clinician, I'm very interested there will be a lot of questions tomorrow about your talk in taking out the prostate. It is a lot different from one country to another country, how they adopt it into their learning situation. Thank you for all.